The Shark Deck.
Hey, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Late night is dark due to the writer's strike, but we have Late Bot, and the Late Bot says, hey, did you see the King's coronation? I saw the King's coronation portrait. It looks like he's already preparing for his next job as a villain in a Disney movie. I heard the coronation took weeks of planning and preparation. It's like planning a wedding, but with more swords and less open bars. I could see Jimmy Kimmel telling these jokes. The chatbot wrote them. I could see these happening. The coronation was so grand, even the pigeons on the street were wearing top hats and monocles. Queen Camilla got a new hat for the coronation. It was so big it could double as a parachute in case of emergency. Those aren't bad, and those were written by the ChatGPT. Not bad. I was thinking, do you think maybe one of the reasons, I'm serious here, that Comedy Central didn't hire a new host for The Daily Show is because they knew the writer's strike was coming? So hear me out. Anytime you change hosts on one of these late night shows, it takes the new host a little bit to find their feet. And, it's only May 8th. If you had brought somebody in at the beginning of the year, they would have had, counts on his fingers, January, February, March, April, 4 months to kind of get in there. And then if you have a 6-month strike and you come back in 24 and it's like, oh yeah, Joe Schmo hosts The Daily Show, plus presumably, and I'm not an expert in contracts, you'd be paying this host to not host The Daily Show because you're not producing it because of the writers. So maybe Comedy Central was doing that, and now the guest host thing makes a lot of sense to me. What do you think? Yes, maybe? Pete Davidson was showing his support for the writers. He brought some pizza pies. Why did I say pizza pies? I'm leaving that in. Where are you from, John? You're from New York. What do you mean pizza pies? I'm leaving it in because sometimes I hate myself. Pete Davidson brought some pizza from Spumoni Gardens to delighted writers on the picket lines in Brooklyn. He was asked, hey, Pete Davidson, why are you dropping off food? And Pete Davidson said, gotta support the writers. No shows without the writers, man. So as I was putting together the show on Sunday morning, I clicked on this and I really didn't react to it well, and I thought I'd go back and read it live. I don't want to come across as negative Nancy. Sorry, Nancy. But I just didn't agree with it at all. From Vulture, the best comedy specials of 2023 so far by Catherine Van Arendonk, who does a great job over at Vulture. Enjoy her stuff. We will agree to disagree. But here's the list. I remind you, comedy is subjective. Catherine may like what she likes. I like what I like. You like what you like. But I looked at this list and I was like, yeah? The article notes all specials are listed from newest to oldest, beginning with John Mulaney's Baby J. I don't even have this on my 2023 list. Look, we all love John Mulaney, charismatic, funny, great body of work, but I watched that new special and it felt performative. Maybe I'm just too familiar with the material because I do this every day and I read about it and I feel like I had kind of heard it, but I was just watching and I was like, all right, it felt like a Colin Quinn or a Mike Birbiglia one-man show more than a stand-up special, and it just didn't grab me. Not on my list. Next up, Monique. I read you an article last week that was describing Monique's special as nothing but horrible. That person who wrote the thing last week had nothing good to say about this thing. Mae Martin's special, same thing. I watched it. It didn't grab me. Fourth on the list, and we're doing this by reverse release order. Kyle Kinane's Shocks and Struts. That actually I have at number 1 right now, so we agree there. You'll find that one on YouTube. I highly recommend you watch it. Marlon Wayans' God Loves Me. Another one of those specials that I got, 4 minutes into, and I was like, not grabbing me. Am I that much of a comedy snob at this point? Mark Maron's From Bleak to Dark. Same thing. I don't have it on my list. It's fine, Mark Maron, but it didn't do anything for me. So that's the Vulture list. Have I just lost it? So here's my list. Number 1, Kyle Kinane. Number 2, Nate Bargatze is fantastic. Why is that not on your list, Catherine? Jay McBride's Daddy's Girl. You'll find that on YouTube. Wonderful. Jim Jeffries on Amazon came out in February. Wonderful. Hari Kondabolu special. Really strong, especially the first 2/3. That's on YouTube. Chris Rock. Remember Chris Rock had a special, Vulture? Not going to mention it? No? Okay. You can make fun of me in the schoolyard for number 7, The Roast of Mr. Peanut. I'm telling you, and probably every time I mention it, you're like, he's crazy. Go on YouTube and find the full version of The Roast of Mr. Peanut. The full version, not the 30-second commercial, the full version. Watch The Roast of Mr. Peanut. And number 8, and this will probably get knocked way down the list as more specials come out, Big J. Okerson I put on my list. It kept me nice company. Not on my list, Mulaney, Lewis Black, Mark Maron, Andrew Santino special, Bert Kreischer special, not on my list, and the Greg Warren special from last week. Again, that one really turned me off. What do I know? It wouldn't surprise me. Some people seem to agree that possibly, perhaps, maybe, who knows? I wasn't in the room. Could have been. They added some laughter to it, and it really turned me off to it. All right, am I just cranky? Have I lost touch here? Should I just stop the podcast and never do it again? Funniest thing of the year, by the way, is Kunk on Earth on YouTube. Watch Kunk on Earth. Wonderful. We lost some good stuff because of this writer strike. Kieran Culkin from Succession, he was going to host Saturday Night Live this upcoming weekend. And for the season finale, the Foo Fighters would have been the musical guest. So now that the season's in the bag, I'm going to rate it as one of the worst SNL seasons of all time. And I've liked the last, it's been a good run, like since Kate McKinnon came on, and I know she has been on the last couple of years. It was a really, really good run. Basically from the start of, I guess, Trump running is when they hit their groove until this season was just awful, like really bad. Am I just cranky today? Should I not do a podcast anymore? Have I completely lost touch? What's going on, John? I don't know. It's the topics. Here's a headline. Yellow Springs versus Dave Chappelle. Neighbors slam Trump-like comedian for buying properties amid shortage. This from the website Meow, MEAWW.com. In case you're not familiar with Meow, or perhaps hosting a podcast and not even entirely sure that that's how they pronounce their website, they write, it's not difficult to locate America's most isolated comedian. Like any other Yellow Springs, Ohio citizen, Dave Chappelle goes out in the city center, buys coffee, and shops. In the midst of an ongoing debate regarding the multimillionaire comedian's real estate acquisitions, Dave Chappelle has been compared to Donald Trump by at least one citizen of his Ohio hometown for his propensity to incite hostility. This comes after Chappelle started purchasing land in the 3,700-person town in 2020. Today, he owns 20 structures, including homes, businesses, an old fire station, and a former school. Residents are fiercely divided over whether or not he's operating in the best interest of the community. Meow writes, off the record, locals of a variety of ages and racial backgrounds claim that Chappelle is a force that's turning us into the place that we're all trying to stay away from. Another citizen said, Dave's got to be the biggest contentious thing that I've ever seen, put neighbor against neighbor. If you close ranks and then you decimate anybody that speaks against an idea you have, then how does that inform community or build community, or how does that save a community? One of Chappelle's most recent acquisitions is a former fire station, which he plans to convert into a comedy club. He also paid $480,000 for the historic Union Schoolhouse with the intention of converting the 1872 structure into the headquarters of neighborhood radio station WYSO. I don't live there. Why is that bad? I don't know. If you're local, I'm happy to be more educated on this. To me, it sounds like a guy is taking old buildings and turning them into thriving businesses. Again, I may be undereducated on this. Back in 2020, Dave was on SNL, and he joked about how his time in Yellow Springs would go. Dave's joke, honey, come quick, the guy from the grocery store is on TV. Chappelle then changes gears and says, no, you big dummy, the guy from TV is at the grocery store.
Hi, my name is TJ, and I host a daily radio show. I have a bunch of friends that join me for it every day, and believe it or not, we all still see hope in humanity. Are you one of these people too? We want to hang out with you. Just search for The TJ Show on your favorite podcasting platform, or join us at thetjshow.com. We would love to have you being hopeful about humanity with us. Here's a quick sample of what the show sounds like. Hey, welcome to The TJ. As you can tell, you need to hear more of it. Search for The TJ Show, and we can't wait to meet you.
The Great Outdoors Comedy Festival in Edmonton. Nice lineup. They've announced some names. You ready for these names? Edmonton, July 14th and Sunday the 16th. The first night, the headliner, Theo Vaughn. Also at the festival, Sam Morril. And on Sunday, your headliner at the Great Outdoors Comedy Festival, Bill Burr. Interesting note from the AV Club, Jury Duty. Have you watched Jury Duty? It's on Freevee. When you can't figure out how to get Freevee, just go on Amazon Prime and they'll stick it under your nose. The creators of Jury Duty are going to submit it not as a reality show, but in the scripted comedy category. Now, what makes that extra interesting is that Ronald Gladden, the guy that didn't know it wasn't real Jury Duty, he could get submitted for a comedy performance he didn't know he was giving. This next topic, little icky and probably a little sensitive, especially in the States due to some recent news topics, shootings involved here. So I'll give you a beat to click off the podcast if you're not in the mood for this. From the Manchester Evening News, Britain's Got Talent comedian slammed over jokes about shooting his daughter. Comedian Marcus Birdman joked, Kids are the biggest source of joy you'll ever have. Trouble is, they tend to ruin every other source of joy you ever had. All right, good premise, reasonable. He continues, I hear other parents say, I'd take a bullet for my child. Would you? I'd take a bullet for my child, put it in the garden and shoot her. That did not go over well, nor did a joke about being a 2-time stroke survivor. Marcus said, a couple years ago I had a stroke. That's what happened. People don't always believe me. I perhaps don't look like a stroke survivor to you. What you fail to appreciate is I'm 23. Marcus explains he's done a lot of work with the Stroke Association and said, you'd think as a 2-time stroke survivor, I'd be able to make jokes about surviving strokes to other stroke survivors. Nope. At one point, someone stood up and went, stroke victims have feelings too, mate. And I went, I know, but only down half the side of their bodies. Some on social media did not react well. One tweeted, repeat after me, joking about shooting kids is not comedy. A different person tweeted, jokes about strokes are not funny. My dad had one, was paralyzed on his right side, was confined to a wheelchair. You should be ashamed. Judge Alicia Dixon said, everything you said tonight on stage, I howled at. I'm glad I'm wearing my big knickers. Honasoid.com sent somebody to one of the showcase shows at the Sydney Comedy Festival. They write, we were promised the best up-and-comers from Australia and around the world. MC Mickey Bartlett had some astute observations about Sydney characters, particularly businessmen on scooters and King Street crackheads. Jessie Fuchs kicked us off. She gave us a lot to think about. No details there other than that. Helen Bauer kept the cringe humor going. Her crowd work was riotous, and no men were safe from her confident charm. Despite the U.S. accent, Moses Storm gave us an honest, endearing look into his childhood. Not sure what the problem with the U.S. accent is. Fresh face Olga Koch. Her quick wit was almost Aubrey Plaza-esque, and she had a big presence. She effortlessly carved out her niche between her self-deprecating humor and cool girl vibe. She gave us an earnest look into her dating life and assured us that if we like bisexuals, we'll like her show Just Friends. Arguably the star of the night, Alfie Brown. His UK accent compounds his dark humor, and his delivery just flows. The highlight was his entry onto the stage where he spotted somebody eating a crisp in the front row. He then proceeded to narrate that excruciating awkwardness of eating a crunchy food in a quiet space, extracting it out of the foil pocket, moistening it on the roof of your tongue, and subsequently regretting the whole experience. If you're a comedy newbie or indecisive about who you want to see, the festival showcases the perfect way to sample a variety of little tasters. I agree. The Sydney Comedy Festival is dark on Tuesday. New Zealand's International Comedy Festival has some shows, including Ann Edmonds' Why Is My Bag All Wet? I remember talking about her at Melbourne. Bobby Wood's show is called If You Met My Mom, You'd Understand, and there's a great picture of him and his dog looking grumpy, and yes, his dog looks grumpy, so I'm clicking on this. Bobby Wood is one of those rare comedic gems, untarnished by the modern excesses of high-speed internet, packaged meat, and introspection. His show includes the damaging downstream effects of witnessing your mother forcibly restore a prolapse cow. Award-winning grass-fed stand-up Bring Your Mom. Voted best newcomer at the New Zealand International Comedy Festival in 2021. Get out on top, John. That's your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your shows. See you tomorrow. All right, here's the pitch. 5 stories. They're all good news. It's called 5 Good News Stories. No negative news, just good news. Nice, easy way to start your day. Hopefully a smile. Hi, I'm Johnny Mac, host of 5 Good News Stories. You get the premise? There's 5 stories, and they're all good news. It's the number 5 Good News Stories. 5 Good News Stories. Follow the show wherever you get your podcasts.